Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
In this episode, we'll be playing Dyson Sphere, the sci-fi logistics game where your goal is to harness the power of the sun in order to power your giant mech, along with your enormous interplanetary factory.
So the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Dyson Sphere is in early access and available on PC for $20.
So what exactly is Dyson Sphere? Well, to talk about what the Dyson Sphere game is, we first need to understand what a Dyson Sphere even is. A Dyson Sphere is anything that would allow you to harness the power of the sun, not just partially, but entirely. An example of something that wouldn't be a Dyson Sphere would be a solar panel, as it harnesses the power of the sun, but not on the scale that we're talking about. Let's start off by talking about the gameplay, as we feel this is usually the single most important topic that people care about. Dyson Sphere's gameplay is very similar to other logistics games, such as Satisfactory or Factorio. However, I would say it's much closer to Factorio than anything else.
The logistics systems take a lot of the things that made each of its predecessors popular, like the graphics in Satisfactory or the gameplay style of Factorio. You'll have to build wind turbines, solar panels, and thermal generators early on in order to generate your power. Next, you'll be researching things much in the same way that you would in Factorio, with different colors of science made up of a vast amount of different ingredients. If you are unfamiliar how this might work, another great example is in order to make blue science, which is the first you will need, it will only cost raw iron and copper. However, if you want to automate the production of the blue science, you will have to make a series of buildings and assembly lines that smelt the iron and copper and then craft them into the ingredients you will need in order to make it.
As the game goes on, you will encounter more and more complex things that you will need to create in order to build more advanced items or buildings, such as batteries, Dyson swarm launchers, and much more. One of the most unique and interesting things about the game, though, is its interstellar travel. You'll be able to travel to new planets and eventually even stars. Each planet is different, and I can't say for sure, but we think they're even procedurally generated. For an example here, in one of our games we had a desert planet close by, and in the other we had an ice planet. You can even eventually harvest the resources in the air around a gas giant.
Next, this game has so many moments where you go,
No way. Launch them! Yes! We did it, boys!
that I can't even count them all on my hands. It feels almost like when you played your all-time favorite game for the very first time, and you know you're never going to get to discover everything for that first time again, so you just try to enjoy the moments for how amazing they are, and then sear them into your brain. Graphically speaking, this game just blew me away. I will say at first look it was a bit cartoony for my taste, and the trailers didn't look all that great. But as I played the game more and more, and got to see how detailed everything was, such as the Dyson swarm panels that you shoot into space and how they actually have details on them when you get up close, I couldn't help but enjoy it.
Now, as far as multiplayer goes, it seems to be up in the air if the company will be adding it to the game. At the time of recording, this is a single-player title only, which was quite a disappointment for us, as we both really enjoyed Factorio and Satisfactory together. If they do make this game multiplayer, we will certainly be playing this on another playthrough as a team.
Combat-wise though, there really wasn't any combat whatsoever in the game. Yes, there's big giant cannons that shoot stuff into space, but that is only for you to generate more power and construct your Dyson Sphere. This was a bit of a letdown at first, but the more I played the game, the more I was okay with it, as I realized how complex the logistics systems can become, especially once you have conquered multiple planets. I wouldn't hate to have the option to have an enemy or something in the game, but it definitely wouldn't be a need for me.
So now let's move into the pros and cons section for the video. First off for the pros would be the graphics. And yes, they took a bit to grow on us, but once you've played the game for a couple hours, it really feels satisfying to look back on what you've accomplished. Second is that the game is just so large in its scope. For the game only being in early access, its depth is way more than we would have expected, and requires a lot of time to learn and build everything you would need to progress. For example, the tech tree alone is absolutely massive in its scale. Third up for the pros is just the raw coolness factor. I know it's kind of a weird pro, but the game just makes everything you do feel so cool and amazing to do. Our first time traveling in space just blew me away. Fourth on the list is that everything just feels very well put together. The controls didn't feel too clunky, and things usually would snap into place exactly the way you would think they should. Finally, we were very overjoyed to see the game had a tutorial that was actually helpful. Many of this game's predecessors don't really help much on the tutorial after the first hour of gameplay. This, on the other hand, was a very simple tutorial where a robot speaks to you and tells you everything you need to know about how to use the new things you've unlocked as you unlock them.
Now for the cons. The only real con we have here is that there is no multiplayer. For us, this was something that was a big bummer, as we love to do our games together and enjoy them with our friends. I think this could be a massive plus if they add it, but don't worry, as this is not something that has been completely ruled out, but it is also not something that the developers have said that they plan on adding. It seems to just be up in the air at the moment.
So now it's time for the rating for the game, and when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that we spend on the game. So for this game in particular, in Dyson Sphere, we would want to get roughly 20 hours of enjoyment out of the $20 that we spent. So after putting 24 played hours into this game, we give it 9 out of 10 potatoes.
Yeah, Dyson Sphere was a really solid game that took all the best parts of other logistics games that came before it. It has a great progression system, and the sci-fi nature of the game really captures the player and immerses you into its universe. The only real negative thing that we could say at this point was that the game had no multiplayer, otherwise the game could have even been a 10 out of 10 for us. We feel that it is very safe to say that if you have any desire to play logistics games, then Dyson Sphere is more than worth the cost.
Now, if you guys want more money-saving content, consider subscribing to our channel, where we release new videos every single week, where we spend the money so you don't have to. Make sure you guys smash that like button, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.